best, ladies and gentlemen. Who wants to come? Takes the point. Who wants to come? Takes the point. Who wants to come? Takes the point.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, with the most recent patch for Monster Hunter Wilds, we have the addition of a new RNG appraisal talisman system, and with this existing, it has ever so slightly shifted builds a bit, either changing the builds or just changing the actual skill list of them. So today we're going to go over the new best builds for Sword and Shield. We will talk about your god roll talismans for each one, and we'll go over the general expected difference between a crafted talisman and a god roll talisman within these setups, and what you would change for each. Before we get into that, though, a quick shout out to the single weapon change we got from the patch notes for this as well, which is counter/raw damage increased. This is about a perfect midway point between what it was before the patch and what it used to be before it was nerfed to begin with, and honestly it feels perfectly fine to me right now. I would still of course rather have it at its original higher numbers, but this is definitely better than it was immediately before. That said, now let's talk about the weapon that we'll be using here. It's the same as it's been since launch. You want artian weapons, and generally speaking, you want to bring the element that matches your target monster's weakness, meaning that you would want one of each of the 5 elements as an artian weapon. The ideal parts to use when crafting it are 3 attack parts, and then the ideal reinforcements are 2 sharpness boosts as the actual sort of main requirement, and then 3 attack boosts would just be nice to have for more offense, but are less important to the just sort of functional feeling of the weapon in combat than the sharpness boosts are. As for your talisman, that's where this gets a bit more fun in this update. The god roll talismans for Sword and Shield are slightly offbeat compared to the other weapons, but it's the same general archetype required, which is a rarity 8 talisman that has a group 3 skill and a group 10 skill, or for anyone who doesn't know those terms, one of the Golden Age charms, because those are the only ones that can have 1 rank of a weapon skill as a decoration slot. Then it also has 3 ranks of a weapon skill, or a 3 slot weapon decoration equivalent, and then a 3 slot armor skill equivalent as well. The specific skills that you are after mainly are either 3 ranks of offensive guard, as that is our singular most important damage increasing weapon decoration, but it would also be fully equivalent in this current build if you had either 3 ranks of razor sharp, or if you had just master's touch like the one that I have here, as we do need a sharpness skill somewhere in here for Sword and Shield in your setup to actually make it feel comfortable. It makes no difference if you have it from your talisman or from your decorations because you want these skills. You can also have attack boost 3 as a skill on your talisman instead, which does line up more with the god rolls that other weapons have, but it is worse than the ones that I mentioned so far because of the sort of split of skills you require. For the second skill then, on the armor skill, you're looking for either burst or weakness exploit. Agitator can also work, but is less ideal. That said, while this is a rarity 8 talisman, the actual requirements for skills are reasonably varied. You can get 3 different skills in either slot and have them have nearly equivalent value to each other, which means that your chances of seeing a talisman like this are at least slightly higher than they are for most other weapons god roll talismans. Sorry about the light, very bright right now. That said, the best crafted talisman to use instead within these setups would be the weakness exploit charm for 2 ranks of that skill. In the best build, the difference between the god roll and this crafted talisman is slightly under 4% damage, meaning that it is not at all the biggest deal if you don't have it and are using a crafted talisman instead. If you instead have the attack boost version of the god roll, you will be exactly 1% weaker than the other god roll options, but every other one is equal because it's just shuffling the same set of skills around. All that out of the way then, let's go into the details of our first build, and both builds today will be using counterstrike as a skill because I think that most players would benefit from having it equipped even on weapons like Sword and Shield. I'll even be only counting it as 50% uptime, which is the equivalent of being hit by the monster once per 90 seconds, and I think that is totally reasonable to expect, and with these numbers, it overtakes any set that does not have Counter-Strike as an option. If you want to build without Counter-Strike, check out our Title Update 2 sets, as I did cover the best set without Counter-Strike, and that has not changed since then. You just slot in one of the new God Roll Talismans if you have it, and nothing else. As well as secondary disclaimers, I have seen people talking about the Odogaron 2 set builds being more relevant again, because they did buff the burst boost set bonus, try saying that 5 times fast. However, I've done math on that on a whole bunch of different configurations, and this is still higher than any set that involves Odogaron. That said, this first build today is the overall highest EFR, or effective raw, the expected damage potential of a build throughout the course of an entire hunt. The main thing that changes between our 2 builds today is that one of them is going to be using latent power as a skill, the one that only triggers after a timer or if you take enough damage, but a lot of people don't really like relying on that skill, and so we'll have a second build that it doesn't have it. But it's worth saying, especially now with 9-star monsters hitting as hard as they do, and those monsters being most of what people are wanting to hunt right now, I think that latent power as a skill is much higher value than it was before. Our actual armor pieces for the first set then are Legiacris Beta head and waist, Gamma Radau chest and arms, and then Gamma Uthuna legs. This gives us a really strong baseline of skills, as well as giving us the Radau 2-set bonus for longer latent power duration, which makes that skill even better, the Legiacris 2-set bonus, which gives us occasional pops with thunder damage that also increase our affinity for a short duration afterwards, and most importantly, the 3-piece Lord Soul group bonus for having 3 Gamma armor pieces on. This gives us 5% bonus damage at the cost of some defense, but also gives us the Guts effect, which prevents a death once per life, and when that triggers, you then swap the damage buff out for a defense buff to even it out nicely. So all in all, this especially is a very effective tool against the 9-star monsters. For the mantle on this one, I'm a personally really big fan of the Brocksteady mantle for the 60% damage reduction while it's equipped mostly, and if you are using counterstrike as a skill, Rocksteady can help you trigger it without actually getting knocked back because of how the two interact. Technically speaking, Corrupted Mantle is the actually correct damage increasing option, but I personally just love Rocksteady so much that I will always recommend it as my opinion unless they change the actual stats behind it. For the decorations then, starting off with your weapon, it's a touch more complex these days due to the new talismans, but essentially between the weapon skill slots on your talisman and then the decoration slots on your weapon, you want to hit critical boost 5, offensive guard 3, and then you want a sharpness skill of some sort like 3 razor sharp or master's touch to help with sharpness retention. If you have the 3 attack boost version of the talisman, then you will have to drop to critical boost 3 instead of 5 to fit the other important bits there, as critical boost, while important, is the least important of those 3 things, but it's not a massive loss. If you have the crafted talisman only, you will also only be able to hit critical boost 3, which again isn't the end of the world, but the important thing that the Godroll talisman lets us do is hit critical boost 5 for that damage increase. For the secondary skill on your 3-slot decoration then, handicraft for more sharpness management isn't a bad choice, but if your sharpness feels fine, you can stick in a rank of element attack up here, which matches the element on your weapon to increase your damage against the target. For your armor decorations, you want enough tenderizer decorations in your 3 slots to max out the weakness exploit skill up to 5 ranks. Your next priority is getting 1 rank of burst, which I instead get from my talisman. If you have more slots remaining past after getting both of those sorted, you would then want to put them into the agitator skill. This is mostly only really relevant to mention for the crafted talisman version of the build, because otherwise you just won't have the slots, but it is worth mentioning. For your 2 slots then, you want 3 counter jewels to get 3 ranks of counterstrike, nice and simply. This skill will give you 25 raw attack for 45 seconds after you are hit by an attack hard enough to be knocked back. Then you just have 5 1-slot sockets remaining in your armor for a ton of defense or utility, as well as any bonus slots you might have in your talisman too, and then for the weapon slot on your talisman, you either again can go for handicraft if you want some extra sharpness, you can go for just 1 single rank of attack if you want that slight bit of extra raw, and that's what I'll be doing here, or you could go with element attack, again matching the element of your weapon. For the full skill list on this one, we've got 5 critical boost, 3 offensive guard, 1 attack boost, 1 handicraft, 1 master's touch, 5 weakness exploit, 3 latent power, 3 counterstrike, 3 maximum might, 3 divine blessing from the 1-slot sockets that I've got in the build, then 3 recovery up, also from the 1-slot sockets in the build, 3 quick sheath, 2 evade extender, 1 rank of agitator, 1 rank of burst, which is the most important rank for that skill. We've got the Radau 2-set, the Legiacris 2-set, and then we also have the Lord Soul 3-piece group bonus. For the math itself then, the weapon will have 220 attack with our ideal rolls. We gain an extra 33 attack from offensive guard being constantly active, as it is 15% of our weapon's attack, which then evens out to that number. We get an extra 11 raw attack from the Lord Soul group bonus, again being 5% of our weapon's attack. We then add on another 3 raw for attack boost 1 from our talisman socket, 12.5 for counterstrike counted at 50% uptime, 2.6 raw for 1 rank of agitator counted at 65% uptime, which is the number that we usually use here, and then 1 rank of burst, which we usually will be counting as 8 raw attack, because for sword and shield we can easily keep the full buff of burst active while we're in active combat. We only really drop off of it if we need to stop to heal and stuff like that, so we'll just count it as the full 8 for a total raw of 290.1. The weapon itself comes with 5% affinity, we have another 30% affinity when hitting weak spots because of weakness exploit 5, we have 3 latent power, which we will be counting at 65% uptime for 19.5% affinity, we've got 3 maximum might for 30% affinity straight up when we are at full stamina, which is the majority of the time with this weapon. Then we get 1.95% affinity from 1 rank of agitator at 65% uptime, which is a tiny amount, but still does need to be included, and then we get an average of 6% affinity from the Azure Bolt set bonus if we count that at around 40% uptime, which is reasonable to assume, for a total affinity of 92.5%. We have critical boost 5 if you have the Godroll Talisman included, which means that our critical hits are a 40% damage increase. A 92.5% chance of a 40% damage increase is an average overall damage boost of 37%. Increase 290.1 by 37% and you get 397.45. Increase that by a further 32% to account for the white sharpness damage modifier and you get 524.6 effective raw. For a more specific comparison, the crafted talisman in the same build gets to 504 effective raw, which is still quite high, but you can clearly see the 4% or so damage difference between these. Point being that the Godroll Talisman is a nice upgrade, but even if you just have the standard crafted talisman, you'll still be doing absolutely fine. That said, next up we have our build for those of you who don't like latent power and want nothing to do with that skill. For the armor pieces on this one, you want the Gamma Radau helmet and gloves, the Legiacris Beta chest and waist, and then the Gamma Uthduna pants. This gives us the same benefits as the first build that we got from them, which are the Radau 2-set bonus, the Azure Bolt 2-set bonus, and the Lord Soul group bonus. The Radau 2-set bonus doesn't matter anymore without latent power, but the other two are still very, very powerful. Moving on to decorations then, for weapon decorations, it is the same as the previous build. Between your talisman and your weapon slots, you want a combined total of offensive guard 3, either razor sharp 3 or master's touch, and then 5 critical boosts. Without a Godroll Talisman, you would have to sacrifice down to 3 critical boost instead. For your armor decorations, again, you have the same general goals to aim for here. You want to use Tenderizer Jewels until you hit maximum ranks of weakness exploit. You want to get 1 rank of burst in there if it's not on your talisman itself, and then any remaining slots can go into boosting agitator a little bit more. For the 2-slot decorations, you need 1 mighty jewel to get the final rank of maximum might, and then you need, of course, 3 counter jewels to get full counterstrike in the build as well. Then you end up with 4 open 1-slot sockets that you can use as much as you want for utility or defense, whatever you want to put in them really. For the full skill list on this one, you've got critical boost 5, offensive guard 3, attack boost 1 from my talisman socket, master's touch as my sharpness skill, handicraft as the bonus on my decoration, 5 weakness exploit, 3 agitator, 3 counterstrike, 3 maximum might, 3 divine blessing is from my 1-slot sockets, that's what I've decided to put in them, 3 quick sheath, and then 2 recovery up, also from my 1-slot sockets, 2 stamina surge, 2 evade extender, and the important singular rank of burst, then the Radau 2-set bonus, the Azure Bolt 2-set bonus, and the Lord Soul group bonus. The math for this build then is 220 attack on the weapon itself, plus 33 from offensive guard, plus 11 from Lord Soul, plus 3 from 1 rank of attack boost, plus 7.8 for agitator rank 3 at 65% uptime, plus 12.5 for counterstrike 3 at 50% uptime, plus 8 for 1 rank of burst for a total raw of 295.3. For affinity, 5% base on the weapon, 30% from weakness exploit, 4.55% from agitator rank 3 at 65% uptime, 30% for maximum might, and 6% from the Azure Bolt set bonus at 40% uptime for a total average affinity of 75.55%. We have critical boost 5 with the Godroll Talisman for 40% damage boost on crits, so an average damage increase of 30.22%. Apply that to our raw attack of 295.3 and you get 384.5. Increase that by a further 32% for the white sharpness damage modifier and you get 507.6 effective raw. That means that the Godroll Talisman version of build 2 here is just slightly stronger than the crafted talisman version of build 1, but that is the potential power of latent power laid out bare for you right there. The crafted talisman version of build 2 hits around 489 raw, so again it is another slightly less than 4% damage loss if you do not have access to a talisman that is more valuable than the default crafted ones. That just about does it for today then, everyone. The 2 new best builds with Godroll Talismans considered for Sword and Shield, which does stand to gain a reasonable amount from this just because of the specific weapon skills that we like to use. So I wish you all the best of luck on your talisman rolls moving forwards, and I hope you enjoy using these builds if you try out either either one for yourself. Like if you liked the video, subscribe with notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.